conversation to a certain point, and thereafter we'll open up for floor discussion. Minister, you've taken 10 minutes of our time already. So I'm going to give you with very short answers and precise answers that you're going to have to give us so that we can make up for the time for the discussion. No long stories. I remember when I was a child, I drove past coming to a man who stayed over in Horston, where my father's sister lived, and when she was crossing across his nephews and nieces, she would say very simply, "Go to court and say money to go off here." We're going to give you like that, a little bit of extension as we go along. So just to ease all of you, I know you see the red, I'm not Indian version of and we didn't choose to sit like this on the left or the right, it just kind of happened. But also when you look at the photograph in the brochure, you'll probably see no beard, and you'll see I have very black hair. So since Minister Gayton Mckenzie took office, everything just turned white. And because he lost all his hair. So, and during this conversation with us, Minister, I guess started by saying that you have come in as a breath of fresh air. We're still trying to figure out whether it's halitosis or can it be the sea breeze, but we'll figure that out, I think, by the time we get to your end of your term. But the one thing that you've done is made yourself accessible from the time at the moment that you were appointed. You received a letter from us, you received quite a few number of open letters from me, and you have been responsive, which is quite a difference to what we've had with ministers in the past. And the ANC has been particularly characteristic about the way they appoint ministers. We've had somebody that was banished, we then had somebody that was in exile, we then had somebody that was detained, and then we had somebody who was a former Minister of Police, and we now, in your own words, with Imam Banditos. So what we're going to wait to see is that at the end of your term, is the Department of Sport, Art and Culture going to operate from Lipkov prison, or are they going to be a right leg in the past? So, Minister, you've been to the Cocker and Car Festival, and you're now coming into this particular festival, the FynArts Festival in Mars. So certainly something resonates with you about festivals, that they are incredibly special, they contribute to social cohesion, they contribute to nation building, they contribute to a cultural economy, they contribute in many, many ways. Why the special interest in festivals?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for coming out this morning. I think with the festivals, for me, I like the underdog story. When you look at funding, that's the first thing I looked at when I became the minister. I realized that festivals don't get support from the department. And that is the thing that survives and that drives the most. So I was fascinated, like this particular group of people having all these festivals, and the festivals being so successful, and you don't get funding from the department. And then the department funds so many things that is very unsuccessful. So I think it was curiosity and that brought me to the festivals and to learn. Most importantly, to learn.
I want to pick up on the question of funding, because most of the festivals, whether it's the National Arts Festival in Grahamstown, the festival in Open Car and Car, or Art Club, the majority of those festivals do receive mainly corporate funding to give them back Upside and Sunnybank and a few others that have been giving festivals abroad. And in your own words, you want to see how festival moves, funding moves in festivals. But one of the things that has concerned us, particularly in our sector, is that we've had a number of calls during the year in the past. This particular year for artists has been particularly difficult, and more so because many artists are still recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic. But there's been only one call for this year. So far, the Mzansi Golden Economy, and there's still no clarity as to when artists are going to obtain that funding. And the other call, which is now just put out about a week ago, only has outcomes in October, which means that the majority of artists who are not funded by the corporate sector and who are dependent on the department are going to be in a difficulty. How are you going to manage that? How are you dealing with that?
Well, let me just comment your previous thing you said. When I mean they don't get funding, I'm talking about government funding. I don't speak for corporates. is what we call Armageddon. I don't know how to describe it. When you have the same people getting money every year for the past, I'll make you an example, and I want to use a sporting example. I walk into my office, I call all the top managers and said, we're going to go line for line, like those, you know, Elon Musk, the ex-friend of Donald Trump. So I said, let's go line for line. I kid you not, we got to something called ring ball. I said, you've been giving ring ball money for 30 years. What is ring ball? Because I'm curious. And nobody knows. I said, call the guy that plays. I said, what's ring ball? I don't know. I said, why are you playing? I found the previous guy playing, so I continued playing. Then I realized that for artists, you have a fund called Silapa Wellness. 18 million rand.
I'm going to talk about Silapa in a short while, so hold that thought.
Yes.
Yeah, but what I'm asking is that before you continue, if you combine the two questions, is that you say you've seen the same names over and over in the same list, same people getting funding all the time. So what we've created over the last 30 years with the Department of Arts and Culture is a grant-dependent arts sector, rather than one that is driven by entrepreneurship or a business thinking. If one takes, for example, the Edinburgh Festival, there is a policy and a strategy which is called Imagining Cities, Cities of Imagination 2030. It's a long-term plan. Is there that kind of policy and strategy being initiated in the department to shift funding from grant dependency and rewarding excellence, supporting entrepreneurship, supporting these kinds of community-driven initiatives that come out of communities and grow on their own and draw resources from there, which takes a complete shift away from grant dependency to a different business model. And I know you've been talking a lot on your social media and other places about you want artists not to hold the big deal. Let's talk about that.
Let me just finish with the first thing to explain to you what I found. So I found a department that the money is just going to the wrong people, the same people, and these people, there's CIFSA. CIFSA is an organization that represents artists, very well connected politically. They get millions every year. I'm just mentioning 2 or 3 examples of what I found there, but it's not the only ones. So you have Silapa Wellness, 18 million rand. This is now for the well-being of artists. You have CIFSA, we are looking after artists. You have downtown studios for up-and-coming people, 18 million rand. And you ask, you get this money, what can you show for it? It doesn't make sense. So I had to come in, this is what the art in Joburg, the art gallery in Joburg. I know some of that art has been stolen. Can't prove it at the moment, but we're going to prove it. You go there, they don't want help. Where's the Picassos? Why can't we see them? The art in Joburg art gallery. When they get help, when they be offered help, they push back the people there and start calling some people racist. Why you don't trust us? I came in, I'm like, no. We even got the presidency is now leading that we chair one of the work streams. 2 weeks ago, I found art of South Africa in Brazil. It has been through the Humphrey Gallery, the William Humphrey Gallery. This art has been, we gave it to Brazil for one exhibition for a week. 6 years, the art has never returned. I'm like, what's happening here? I called the ambassador, called everybody, can you explain to me? I called my staff. Now the art, now South African art is in South Korea, it's in Korea, it's everywhere. I'm trying to bring all the art back. I'm trying to understand who stole our art, who bought our art. I'm trying to bring all of those things. except being the same people again benefiting. I then said, all right, let's do it differently this year. Let's still continue, but let's make the pool bigger, and the quantum will be smaller, but it will reach more people. So we have to change the whole model. Now people say, where's the money? Now that's where my problem comes in.
Minister, you've said quite a lot of stuff when it comes to...
Okay, let's say the last thing, which is your question. Let me just give me a chance to answer your question.
Yes.
The issue of, if you look at the issue of Mzansi golden economy, you cannot build a business or you cannot run any art institution or anything being dependent on government. You cannot be an artist and then if government don't give you money, you have no business. They are in the business of getting money from government. That is not a sustainable business plan. So I'm trying to change them and say, instead of waiting for money from government, let government be maybe, if you like, one of the funders. We must be the creators. We must be the one that makes the opportunities available for you to excel. But we shouldn't be the main source of funding. There's artists that don't even make songs anymore. They are just waiting for government to give them money.
Yes, I just want to clarify for audiences that don't know some of the terms we've used. CIFSA is the Cultural and Creative Industries Federation, which was an initiative by President Jacob Zuma. If you look at the colours of CIFSA, it's in the ANC colours as well. It was a group that was appointed to bring all cultural industries under one umbrella. It had a group of musicians running it, whether it's visual arts, video kind of thing. A disastrous tenure with loads and loads, millions of money that were displayed. So that's now abandoned. You've closed that down. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for establishing 16 separate groups that were specifically focused around music, theatre, visual arts, and so forth, which is specific. And I served one of them. So I'm not saying thank you because of that, but I think it's a model that we've been trying to convince now to Tekwa to implement this much more effective model. You can't put all artists into one room. The other good thing that you did is that there was plans on the table to amalgamate the National Arts Council and the National Film and Video Foundation, two separate funding institutions with one big mega board. And we're going to have one big mega council with all the performing arts under one and all theatres under one, which is a ridiculous plan because you cannot, you can run a mega council for museums because the process and the principles of compensation is the same in dealing with artifacts. But you can't do that with theatres. So you have a little more sense that, or I would say, a lot more sense than now to take to abandon that plan. So you've abandoned a lot of things that were set up for disaster. Where is that common sense emerging from in the DAC? Because it is a new kind of thinking. And I know it's your thinking, but where's it stemming from? And how are we going to see that implemented in policy so that when you're no longer there, we don't start it all over again, but there's policy that keeps it sustainable?
I think the first thing is that we need to be honest. South Africans have this problem of not being realistic. When I came in, I saw, let's take opera music. I saw people representing the genre of opera music. There has never been to opera show. They've never listened to opera music. They don't know what they're supposed to. I remember myself. Maybe you said, this girl impressed, I tried to impress this girl and she's like, I don't listen to this hip-hop nonsense. I love hip-hop. I'm like, me too. And she said, I said, what music do you like? She says, I love opera. So she took me to one. I made a big mistake to take my friends with. And I went, and they were singing, and they were performing, but my friend was sitting 3 steps behind. And I thank God today for that. Because when this lady started saying, oh, my friends, I could hear like, what's a cuckoo? So I'm trying to talk to her, and then I see this girl, and she's supposed to be singing, oh, I see she's And my friends are cracking out to the back. And I go, and I said, can I just get a tissue? I go, ons nieuw. Ik heb more alles op. Oh, yeah. So, I knew nothing about that genre of music. But today I know. But you can't present something that you know nothing about. The same was when I became a minister. They asked me what are your top priorities. I said, I'm going to bring spinning back. You know, the white people that used to work with me and that I know start calling me the white ladies. Thank you. It's about time somebody like me spinning. They thought I'm talking about the spinning of the German. I'm talking about car spinning. All the white people thought I'm talking about spinning in the German. I'm talking about car spinning. You take the BMW and so what I'm saying is that that thinking for me, and I'm going to be brutally honest with you, I have been business in my life, and I can't even fix an apartment. How do I even have the right one day to say maybe I must help fix South Africa? And for me, I see this as a great challenge. And people want to say it, but I'll say it that, you know, I look at some of the people that is in the business of, in the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture benefiting. And these are downright criminals. They have abused, they show you how criminal some of them are. The very same one that has been benefiting. There's a youth organization called SACAFE. The leader of that youth organization, representing the youth, they've been paid millions. They next on my radar. He represents the youth and it's a youth organization. But he's old.
Minister, let's pick up on that question because that's quite important. This question about the organization doing a whole account. Because we talked earlier about SIFSA and the millions that went missing with SIFSA. And there is now a forensic investigation instituted to determine what happened to that money. But what we've had over the last number of years is DHC has instituted a number of forensic investigations, but nobody was ever held to account. There was no consequence management, and very often the terms of reference for those forensic investigations was written by very officials who are culpable. What assurance do we have that this time round this will not be a forensic investigation that failed? The forensic investigation against the market failed with money. The forensic investigation against the National Arts Council failed with money. Robert Island failed with money. The National Arts and National Film and Video Foundations, and I can go through a whole list of them. How will this forensic investigation be very different and not fail? What assurance are you giving us? Is there going to be consequence management? What happens to the officials in your department who become complicit and culpable of bad administration of money that's gone astray? We all know the tragic story of Welcome and Somi, the South African legend, with the Legends project, where there was no controls, 10 million rand went astray. A man who built his name on incredible work in South Africa and exile died a tragic man in prison. But what do we have as guarantee that this will not fail this time around?
Right. One thing I called the head of the auditing committee. I called the lady and I said to her, listen, man, I want you to know that I will not protect no one. Can you bring me all the audit reports? The first one she brought me was the South African Institute for Drug-Free Sport. SAINS. That's the first one she brought me. I did read like a horror movie. She said there's still another 10 or so I think coming. The first one she brought it to me 8 days ago. Yesterday, I removed that whole board and I'm coming for each and everything.
Just the boards. And I know that's a sensitive issue at the moment because you're going to be all through Parliamentary portfolio committee. We'll talk about that in a short while. But when I promised us that the post of DG, which has been acting for a number of years, and it was acting even before your time, when the former minister was there. At what point are we going to see that post being filled? Because we do know that when people act for such a long time in acting positions, and particularly when they think they can be asked, and they can act, and they just don't read the script, at what point is that promise going to be fulfilled, and that post being advertised, at what point is it to be filled? Because we know that that is where things go wrong, that the person who is supposed to be your second in charge, that holds the institution together, is not a permanent position.
Right. I did promise them last year, during my last speech, we've had all the interviews, the candidates went for shortlisting, Cabinet must just, in the next 2 weeks, announce the new Director General. So I just want to follow that promise of filling.
You mean before you go to the budget speech?
Yes, before I go to the budget speech, I was pushing them like that, I'm not going to my budget speech, be much faster. But also that, not only that post, there's a lot of posts there, and you know, there's something that people don't talk about, and I'm going to say it here because I've been in a hell of a fight. I think you get people that you understand the procedure of the board's appointment, because I read your thing. White people in this country are being written out of government jobs. And nobody wants to say it. I'm not saying it because it's a white audience. I'm going to say some stuff here that's going to make you never vote for me again. But yeah, white people, you know, I make sure that for the first time the boards must include white people. Because representation matters. I had a big fight, even in Parliament, a fight that is still ongoing at the moment because there had no white person on it was the Minister board. And they said nobody applied.
That is the South African Language Board, which is responsible for the protection of all South African official languages.
And he said no minister, no white person applied. I said, impossible. And I went to check, and you had 3 top doctors that applied, white doctors. And I fought that case. I was called before the portfolio committee. I refused because I come from the colored community and I know what marginalization sounds like. I know how we are also being slowly written out. And you can go and see every board that is now being chosen in South Africa under me, and there's 27. There's not a single board that you will find that doesn't have an Indian, a white, because people don't want to say it, but you know, this something belongs to all of us. And we mustn't be scared to say, where's the white kids go overseas for better opportunities. But you lament them and say, yeah, why are you leaving the country? It's like the 49 famous South Africans. I think you also criticized them. And I said to them, my friends also criticized them in the party I belong to, and I said, no. We need to ask a different question of the 49 people that left. Instead of criticizing them, we must ask them a question and say, what makes you think there's a genocide? Because a man doesn't just leave his house. He's everything he knows. Wrongly or rightly, we believe some stuff, not we to win. Take yourself, put yourself on the moon, and you come back and you hear a leader sings, kill the boer, kill the farmer. We know the history of the song. We know it's a song. Like everybody says, it's a song. No? It's a song. It's a style of song. Fine, let's song any style. Put yourself in the shoes of a white person that has been attacked on the farm maybe, and they hear, kill the boer, kill the farmer. We have no place for people like Julius Malema and them in this country. We should say it. If I'm not going to be invested.
I'm not going to follow up on that same question. I think what festivals do is festivals open up spaces for conversation. So we leave something hanging, and hopefully that will come up in question and answer, or people will carry that conversation up before you. But what I say is that come back to this question of boards, because we've been through the process of public nomination of boards, and I haven't, as Parliamentary portfolio committee as well. I know you acknowledged the correspondence, but there were 4 processes, and I know you acknowledged after the first correspondence tension between boards that are elected to govern and the management that are responsible for the operations. But we found boards blurring those lines and getting interfering in the operations, getting rid of CEOs, and then a board member is appointed in an active capacity with massive salary to serve there, and they prolong the appointment of the CEO. It's all about corruption, in simple words. And we haven't seen that in your tenure, but we've seen this new boards, you rush to the appointment of boards and so forth, and some were structured effectively, others were problematic, as we complained to you, and you took note of. But one thing that concerns me is that there is a legislation that governs the appointment of boards. And in the case of the National Film and Video Foundation, what we see now, is that the CEO, for instance, Blades, who was interrogated in Parliament around the National Boxing thing, and who then became CEO of the National Film and Video Foundation, has now also resigned. And of course, there's an urgency to fill that particular position, which you've done, because until there isn't a CEO in that position, it means no grants can be signed, and artists and filmmakers are going to suffer. But the legislation is very clear that when a vacancy arises of CEO, it must be filled by a member of management. And that's very clear in the legislation, 6.4, section 6.4. What is, as I just heard something this coming week, is that somebody from the DAC has been seconded to that position. Now that's a breach of regulation. How are we going to navigate this when you are the custodian of the 27 pieces of legislation for the arts? And that breach is really coming out of your office. It should be your Director of Institutional Governance that should be advising you and saying, you cannot breach a regulation. You can breach policy, you can waive policy. Because there are processes to waive policy. But you cannot breach legislation. You are custodian of the law. If your department is breaching the law, what message is going out to the rest of us? That everyone can be doing as it please. Is there a process to rectify that?
But I think the first thing was, it must be said. The NSDF, the National Film and Video, they got R1 billion over 5 years. R1 billion. I called them in, the previous board. I said, you got R1 billion. Show me one hit movie, one blockbuster with R1 billion. One lied to me in my face. Yes, we have 2. I said, what's the names? They couldn't tell me. That board is gone. Got in a new board. Very good board, very good people. You get the CEO in, Mr. Dennis, a man of good character. It's a good man. He resigned. I've heard many reasons for why he resigned, but I do personally think is that the pressures of that job maybe got to him. And that's why I think he's a good man. Now, coming to what you are saying,
the breach of regulation.
Yeah, before that. I got a request 2 weeks ago for 2.7 million rand for them to go to Cairns Film Festival. And I went back all these years, every year people go to Cairns. But what you can, if you want to learn from Cairns, you can just take last year's report or the year before or the year before. So I said no, nobody's flying to Cairns. And then it was like, I've killed somebody in that department. So really, doesn't he know it's like the birthright to go to Cairns? The bridge, I understand what you're saying. Number one, the first, before we had the CEO, we seconded Lewan. Lewan is part of management. And I have asked them to second another person. It is news to me that the person that they have seconded is not management. I am shocked to hear that because the first secondment we did was Lewan, which is management. Then we got a permanent CEO in. He resigned. You would expect the people to understand what is the right thing to do. I can assure you, when I woke up here, that's the first call.
I can assure you that when the Minister tells me I'll come back to you within 10 days, he does. Because he doesn't write down an explanation or write a converting video or somewhere else. Sometimes things are going somewhere else. Because I think what we see is, particularly in the last month, we've seen people going somewhere else because things may be going wrong and so forth. But I want to come specifically to this question around CEOs of institutions. Because, you know, a video clip went viral, you must have seen it and so forth, where you address the issue of foreign nationals in institutions, and you said, I'm giving you 3 weeks to get them out, otherwise I'm getting you out. And firstly, I'm not sure who advised you, because again, there's legislation, there's labor law. You can remove a council, because you have a mandate and the authority and the legislative powers to do that. But the labor law does not permit you to remove a CEO who is not employed. You may be the funder, but they are accountable to a council via fund. And there have been precedents in the past where CEOs were removed independent instruction from the former Minister of Arts and Culture, and there was enormous CCM cases, labour cases, and CEOs had to be reinstated or had to go through an enormous payout. So what's happened at this particular point, you've given the CEOs an ultimatum which expired yesterday. And I do know that the CEOs have not implemented that, because firstly they know that you cannot take an instruction from anyone that tells you to perform anything illegally. And what you did was to tell before people to break the law, labor law. So they will not listen to you on that, but they haven't. And we can discuss why they may have, we don't discuss it here. But I just want to say, what are you going to do about it with your boards that didn't implement that because they knew that it was a breach of law that people are asking them to follow?
Thank you. Look, first thing where am I from there? Before I became a minister, I was the acting CEO of a listed company, listed on the JSE, listed on the London main board. I run several of my own companies prior to me being appointed, so I understand corporate governance. The first part of your question is, I can't tell the CEOs. I didn't talk to the CEOs. I spoke to the board and the board chairs. That is what the law expects of me. So that's the first part. So if I wanted to speak to the CEOs directly, I would go to the offices and I call the board chairs and I give them it. I want to explain something, particularly to your audience here today. I never said remove foreigners. I said remove illegal foreigners. 1. 2. Foreigners, the law, not what Ismail said or what I'm saying, the law says in South Africa, this is the law. There wasn't written by me. When there's a South African applying for a job in a foreigner, the foreigner must only get the job when he possesses a special skill. A handyman is not a special skill. A driver is not a special skill. Let's put them there. The farm workers, I was a criminal. Never killed. They never killed. Criminals never killed farm workers. I tell you today, there was never this problem was murders. Go check. When did the advent of farm murders happen? When Mandela was opening the gates for every Tom, Dick and Jabulani to come in. When they're inside and go and check the people that have been found guilty, the majority of them are illegal foreigners. Now, the uncomfortable truth, particularly of this audience, is that you never dare to leave your child with a stranger. Never. But you're doing it. The lady cleaning your house and the person being a gardener, you don't really know their real names. You didn't vet them. But as a South African, if I apply for a job, you're going to go, you was in jail. But in Franschhoek was a man had worked 18 years for a family as head of security. Interpol went there because that man was part of the killing of more than 3,000 people. We're sitting on the biggest bomb that's going to, and I'm telling you now as a politician, what will destroy South Africa is no white, black, Indian, colored relations. It is youth unemployment. Malema was a blessing, I'll tell you why. Because he's more interested in the trappings of wealth. But if you have a guy like Andile Kama, which is an MP, the one that said, kill all the whites, kill the children, I'll kill the children. Andile is a friend of mine. Money means nothing to him. He's not a guy that you can impress with money. He would wear anything that he doesn't wear labels like myself and Malema. Yeah, he doesn't care which watch he has on. I don't even think Andile has a watch. But if Andile was in the position of Malema, there would have been a revolution already. But Malema is very good for this country because he stops the revolution. He fools people to say, I'm fighting for you. I'm a capitalist. Undoubtedly, don't look at me like this. I'm a capitalist. I believe in the free market. But you can't be saying you're communist and you love Mercedes-Benzes and you love the trappings of wealth. Now, here's my important point that I'm trying to make. We have double-digit youth unemployment. You go to, I live in Cape Town. You go to every house in Cape Town, there's a foreigner working there. You go to every garden in Cape Town, there's an Malawian cleaning the garden. You go to restaurants here in Hermanus, you're being served by a foreigner. We are cooking our own demise. If they kill you, you can't find them because they were documented. The prisons at the moment, awaiting trial prisoners, are more illegal foreigners than locals. It is wrong. So in government, this is my last sentence as well. In government, you have people that have work permits. If you know your work permit is legal, if you know you've been legally employed, who can buy that? Why do you worry? Just give it. If you know you have a special skill, maybe you hold the garden fork differently than us South Africans. That's your special skill. But it's still a gardener. So I'm saying I'm going to crack down on all the illegal foreigners in the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture. And the one that didn't answer me, they will see who they deal with here.
I think it's a week of anticipation, and in many ways, I think it's important that we understand the law. I don't want to say you reach the law there, you don't reach the law there. I think it's quite right to say that when we engage foreigners in South Africa, that there are legal processes, that there is work permits and whatever else, and they should apply across the board. But the questions that do come up, and I think when you look around and you see it, and you'll see not getting the other way around, is that it's perhaps the way it's been articulated, which has got the black civil society up. And just yesterday, there was a statement by the Ahmed Rada Foundation, which condemned the way you articulated matters and so forth. So I think what I'm not going to ask for a response to that question, but I want to say is that the condemnation is not around the way you're asking the policy to be implemented, the legislation to be implemented, or not implemented. It's around the way matters are being articulated and sometimes foment the kind of broken society. But I think you said it, but I said theatre is about letting people think and letting people carry the conversation out of the venue. So you don't provide the minister. We'll give you a chance to speak as well. Told there. So what we're saying is we will get a chance. What we're saying is that the conversation is to throw a number of things to you and allow the conversation to happen. Otherwise, it would become a church sermon where we just deal with everything in a one-way conversation. But I want to deal with the last question, and I'm going to look it up at the floor, is that you have also backtracked, because initially when the parliamentary portfolio said they summoned you, issued a video statement to say, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to go, and you quoted the Popular Act, and last week you agreed that you will now go to the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee, I think on the 10th. You will present yourself to that and so forth. Why the change of heart?
No, I don't have a change of heart. I don't have the power not to appear before the committee.
And you don't, because why did you put out the video in which you said you...
No, they said I will be in the next one. I said I will not go because they have meetings every week. Every week. South Africa, there's one meeting in Brazil a year of ministers of BRICS countries. In that meeting in Brazil, we must sign and decide on budgets and what we're doing for the next year. How do I miss that meeting? Compared to a meeting that happens every week, a meeting that I can send my director, acting director general and my whole staff. So I said, I will not go to that meeting. I said, I will not go. And I said, I'm going on the 10th. I don't have the powers as a public official not to be scrutinized and not to be interrogated. So I'm going on Tuesday. The issue that I'm having is that the words they are using, I'm going to take it up with them. The words they are using, you don't, you know, some people, there's a camera there that records everything. But you have members of the portfolio committee sitting with a video and editing. You know, in any conversation I can make anybody look stupid. Anyone. If I edited, I said something during the election which somebody edited. I said, Muslims are our enemies, they are saying. How can Muslims be our enemies? They took the first line. Muslims are our enemies. And they sent them out in the world. Now, how do people feel comfortable speaking with a guy that asked a question that was to build this political career on lies and editing? There is a video that records everything. Play them. People have access to them. Why do you need to have a phone to alter it? I will not be bullied by them. That's what I said. But I'm going to go there on Tuesday, or the 10th, and I'm going to answer the questions. I think the head of SASCO, Barry Hendricks, he asked 2 questions in the Parliament before he started. He said, I just want to know, is there anybody here amongst the people that's going to interrogate me that has a conflict of interest? And I asked not to be recorded with a video. And they chased him out. That's not, it is the Popular Act, it is his right. If somebody asked me here, can they record me? I said, on one condition, you record everything. And what is wrong with asking for that? They're going to make that committee inoperable very soon.
Minister, when I opened up, I did say, we may agree with you or we disagree with you, but the one thing is that you are approachable. So, thank you for that. So this is the point at which I'm going to open up for questions from the auditorium. We'll take 3 questions, and one after the other, and we'll let you respond to all 3. Any questions?
Yes.
I see a hand over there.
At the top.
And a hand over there to...
Up there.
At the top.
At the top there. Yeah. Oh, there. Yes. There's one. We'll take 2 rounds of questions. So keep it very brief, because we need to make up for your time.
No, you keep on saying, I wasn't late.
Yes.
No, but I'm saying, I wasn't late. Let me just get that right. I was here and I was saying, I don't want to go by a pie.
Go ahead.
Goeiemôre, ek is Kelly Olsen, kunstige slaggever by Netwerk 24. Minister Mckenzie, ek het laas jaar vir u gesien by die Woordfees, en u het gesit met al die hoofde van die kunstefeeste. Wat ek wil sê is, daar is gisinge in die kunstegemeenskap dat u leebeloftes maak. Ek wil met u hoor, tot dusver, is amper 'n jaar in die stoel. Is daar enige gesprekke of beloftes wat u gemaak het aan mense wat nie vervul is nie? En 'n opvolgvraag is, het u al enige fondse beloof vir kunstefeeshoofde en nie te gee nie, of u is in gesprek daarmee?
Ik heb beloofd dat de kunstefeesten geld gaan krijgen. Ik heb het vandaag gezegd dat het wordt nog binnen 2 weken wordt aangekondigd. Ik heb een belofte gemaakt. En die gisteren, dat is net kost, ik heb een belofte gemaakt. En als ik geld inkomt van alle diverse dagen, dan is die beloftes. Zo ik heb een belofte gemaakt. Ik sta binnen de feesten zoals jullie, moet ook gefondst worden. Want net zo bij mensen dat geld krijgen die benodig hebben. En die feesten dat het groter wordt. En die mensen dat kunnen was net investment. Dank je.
Minister, you said that you looked at every line item.
The person upstairs, please come downstairs and get the mic.
Mary.
Hi, it's Paula Kelly from Sport Dava Dance. You said that, Minister, you said that you looked through the line items and discovered this and this and this. Do the public not have access to these line items, to these reports every year? We have to put our audited reports out to everybody. Does the department not have to put their audit reports with line items out? Because then we can all scrutinize with you together.
A very good question. You're stealing my thunder because in my budget speech, the same day of my budget speech, I'm putting out everybody that never got money from the department. Then the first day, so yeah, that is what should happen, what should have happened, because we've had instances where people got money and didn't pay the dancers for it. And they said the dancers, we were never paid. And the dancers come to us, why don't you pay us? So I can promise you in my budget speech, it is a line item for them to release everybody that you can go on the internet. It's going to happen going forward.
Morning, Minister.
Ask a question from the top.
Yes, I was at the top, I came down. Morning, Minister. I'm going to try and ask the question succinctly, but it's a little tricky. So there's the Higher Department of Education that deals with NSFAS and helps us to graduate students in performing arts. And then in September last year, you went to see the beautiful opera Dalinda at Baxter Theatre. Now, the reality is that the majority or a large number of those students are postgrad students. Same as STEM, women in technology, in sciences and technology. We want them to graduate, to go to higher education, to get their postgraduate qualifications. There isn't a funding model for them. And so what happens is a lot of people in this audience and outside of this audience scamper around to try and secure funding for these university students who have immense talent. So it's a little bit like mind the gap, because there's Department of Higher Education. We want our artists to grow and to perform, but there isn't a funding model for it. So my question is, finally, how are you going to close that gap? Because there needs to be that mechanism, both in sciences and in arts.
Thank you very much. You know, I think my last point will be about the GNU. I can tell you that for a fact that we have discovered between the DA, the PA, and the IFP, and the ANC, we come with a fresh perspective to them and say, guys, there's a gap here. Let me make something in sport that I'm working on actively right now. The tactic is the same thing. South Africans, we are overweight. I know we don't believe that, but we are. And the people running marathons and races has gone down. And there's 2 reasons for that. Crime, people are scared to be marked while running. And also, to put up a race is so expensive. Now, the GNU is doing perfectly for me. We sit there and the president allows us to say to the police minister, I'm sending you a letter. Your job is too expensive. The same with higher education. There is a problem with that. We are aware of it. And it has not been raised
question is based on the Venice Biennale, if South Africa will be participating in the 2026 Venice Biennale.
Right, you know, the Venice Biennale is one of the things that just broke my heart. South Africa spent so much money, and somebody along the line said, we're no longer going. I called the staff, and I can assure you that South Africa for the first time, the mortality will be I mean, our place was just rented out there at no fee to another company. We have written the letters. We have written the letters to our own department. And I can promise you that South Africa is back in the Vienna Biennale.
Because one of the challenges that has existed in the art sector in South Africa is the Venice Biennale, like other international states like book fairs, to which we send South African artists, is that it becomes a marketplace to profile our artists and to create exposure. But one of the challenges that we've had with the Department of Art and Culture every second year when the Biennale is held, is that the call out for the tender is put out at least 2 months, 3 months before the Venice Biennale, which is too late then for the South African exhibition to be included in the major catalogue. So the expenditure then of sending people across has been complete wastage because they're not in the main catalogue. Can we just request, as a follow-up to that question, that the call out be put out in the next month, so that for the first time in at least all these number of years, South Africa is in the main catalogue and not on the side or the fringe, excluded from the main catalogue. Because that has been an incredible challenge and failure on the part of the Department of Arts and Culture every single time that South Africa participated in the Venice Biennale.
It will happen. Thank you.
I'm going to call you about it.
I know. That's the thing there. When we used to grow up, we used to break into white people's houses. And we will pray, you know, when you go to a white people's house to break in, you hope to get a bulldog. You hope to get a bulldog. Because what we have is leg of lamb. You make a leg of lamb, you spice it nicely. So when you get in the house and the bulldog comes, you give him the leg of lamb. And then you steal the video and the TV. And when you find those small dogs, it's the worst nightmare of a person breaking in. They don't want the leg of lamb, they make, oh, the whole time. This one is like that sometimes. You make a noise, the police are coming. Those dogs, listen, if you don't allow me to look at you, get those small, take your lighters. They make a noise, the neighbors here, the police, they like an alarm.
There's a question at the back, right to the back there. Oh, there's a gentleman there. I see a question over there as well.
Can I go now?
Yes.
A bit more on the ground, Minister, and that is, can you comment on the gallery, the art gallery in Johannesburg, which is in disarray and got the most fabulous art collection, half of which has been stolen, and can you add anything to this?
Right, I tell you, what I'm demonstrating is that firstly I want to apologize to those people that have been fighting this fight. They've been called racist, they've been called all sorts of names. They even, you were part of that group. Then once again Ismail, they were in contact with me and I got involved. I can tell you, we can all talk as ministers, as things, but when the president speaks, you listen. And the president came in and he had different work streams, and we are now actively fixing that problem. I am more interested in the Picassos. We've had whistleblower reports that some very big people that I know, which I can't mention here, bought some of the art. That is still just a whistleblower report. We're going to follow them up to the letter. We are now at a stage where the presidency is involved. We are speaking. There's still a little pushback from the metro in Johannesburg, because the back was all the help that you've been given by the art community. I really propose that all the minutes of our meetings must be published so people can know how far we are, but we are on them. Big theft. I'm talking about massive theft in my opinion. Has happened there. Massive theft.
To provide more context to the question.
Yeah.
And as part of the G20 developments, and you may recall when President Silverberg was I'm shocked when he saw the state of Georgia, he's put together, I think it's seven work stream groups, and one particular work stream group is specifically around the rehabilitation of cultural sites in Johannesburg, with a specific focus on the Johannesburg Art Gallery. So there's regular meetings held, which are chaired jointly by a representative from the President's office and a representative from your office. We usually have a consistent person. The first time round, you had a Director General. The second time round, you had a very diplomatic Chief of Staff. But I think we need consistency in that meeting. And those two meetings bring together a number of stakeholders from the city, as well as activist groups and corporate sector, to look at rehabilitation. Minister, at this point, we're going to have to close down. The purpose here is to continue the conversation outside. So let's take the conversation. Thank you very much to you, Minister. Thank you to you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you to the FynArts Festival.
Life of an artist, bacho spices, glorifying drugs as a stage fright cure. You can try this just when you're about to grab your chance of staging. Excitement, you can't think out this industry, or should I say this killer dream, cause you will swear that from the start it was designed to kill artists. Bangakulwela when days are bright, as a human being on Instagram, too much pressure, unrealistic expectations. Whoever said that artists are perfectly is with us, wethembekile, singiza wethembekile, remedies within us, ezikhwemba sibhebhekile.